Hi everyone, Jai Hind and welcome to the platform of StudyIQ IAS in English. My name is Bhavar Singh Suru, MXND 115th course and qualified civil services in 2012, and I welcome you on the platform. Now in this video, we'll be talking about the Romeo-Juliet Clause, that is the legal protection for the consensual peer relationship that is there, and we'll be doing a complete deep dive in and we'll be understanding what this actually means. Now when it comes to the Romeo-Juliet Clause, it is basically the clause that refers to the state statute that provide the exceptions or reduced penalties in the statutory rape cases where both the individuals, they are close in gap of the age as well as the relationship is basically consensual. Now over here, it is very important to note that it specifically applies to the consensual relationship between teenagers who are peers. And ultimately, it prevents the young adults from facing the life-altering criminal charges or the criminal labels for the non-predatory acts that are there. And it also focuses on the proportional justice rather than the rigid age of consent enforcement that is there. Now, when it comes to these laws, why these laws actually exist? So there is the first reason is the differentiating intent, and the law, it seeks to distinguish between the predatory exploitation as well as the consensual peer-to-peer exploration that is there. It recognizes that the relationships between individuals close in age differ from the adult-minor dynamics that is there. The another reason is avoiding the harsh penalties because it prevents the teenagers from being permanently labeled as sex offenders or carrying the felony convictions for the consensual acts, ensuring that the punishment is basically proportional to the crime. And it also protects their future as well, because when it comes to consensual mistakes in the youth, they should not permanently ruin the complete educational opportunities or even the career prospects. And these laws, they provide a legal safety valve when it comes to the peer consensual relationship that is there. Now, how does this age gap exception it works? The first thing is that there is a fixed age range that is there. Most of the statutes, they define that there is a specific window of age difference between the parties. This is typically said between 2 to 4 years to ensure that the relationship is basically peer based. All right, the common standard is it should be less than or equal to 3 or 4 years that should be there. There's a minimum age floor as well. All right, so this exception usually applies if the younger party has reached a certain age. That is, often it is 13 or 14 years to prevent the exploitation of the very young children as well. So typical floor age is basically 13 or 14. And there is absolute consent as well because this clause is strictly for the consensual acts which are there. Any evidence of the force, coercion or the lack of the capacity immediately voids the legal protection that is provided, and it is very important that mutual consent should be there. Now, when it comes to India, so how did we get over here? So it was the era before 2012 where the age of consent was there and 16 years was defined as the age under the IPC, which was the basic protection framework that was there in India. In 2012, POCSO or the Prevention of Children from the Sexual Offences Act was enacted where the age was raised to 18 years and zero tolerance framework had been applied, and this was because of the compliance with UNCRC norms. Now over here right now at the present day, the consensual cases they overwhelm the courts, as well as the judicial demands are for the reform intensity, and ultimately this is very important to note that there is the identical treatment problems. When it comes to a 17-year-old boy who is in a consensual peer relationship with a girl, he will face the same exact criminal charges or severity as a 45-year-old predator will do. So that is why it is the need of the hour, and that is why we are talking about this as well. So now you can understand this with the zero tolerance curfew as well. Suppose there is a student who arrives at the hostel gate at 8:05 p.m. Now, he had been delayed by a genuine academic project. There was a project that was there and he was completing it in his science lab. Now, he gets delayed by just 5 minutes. So, under the zero tolerance, what will happen is that he'll be treated identically to an armed trespasser who is there. He'll be locked out and expulsion protocols will be initiated. So this is how the absolute POCSO that works without the exception that is there, or without the Romeo-Juliet clause that is not there in the POCSO Act. At the same time, there is a smart exception as well. What happens is that if he gets delayed, so the gatekeeper, he checks the ID, verifies the academic delay, and even confirms the student status as well. And then he lets them in with a warning. The main gate, it remains locked against the actual threat and the protection is preserved. And that is the Romeo-Juliet clause that we are talking about. Now, right now, why I'm talking about this is because this had been in the current events, and when it comes to in India. So, Supreme Court in January in State of UP versus Anuruddh, it said and expressed the deep concern over the mechanical application of POCSO. As well as over here, it has urged the union government to explore that there should be a Romeo-Juliet clause that could be added to the act. As well as when it comes to Allahabad High Court. So Allahabad High Court in another case have asked for the mandatory age testing, and here again Supreme Court have set aside the order of the Allahabad High Court and that mandated medical age testing in all cases, and it has warned against the unnecessary harassment of the adolescents. At the same time, when it comes to Madras, Bombay and Delhi High Courts, there are repeated judgments prosecuting the adolescent romance under the POCSO, and that ruins the lives and even it clogs the judiciary as well. Now, recently, when it comes to Nepal, so Nepal have also proposed a clause in age exception in its rape laws, a regional legislative trend that is gaining momentum in the South Asia. All right. Now, over here, this is, there in the constitutional roots as well. Because when it comes to the clash, so there is Article 21 that provides for the autonomy, or it gives the right to life as well as personal liberty, where right to privacy is also the inferred right as per the Supreme Court judgments. But at the same time, when it comes to Article 15.3, so Article 15 Clause C, it provides for the protection where it is the state's duty to protect women and children. And there is the legislative paternalism that is there according to Article 15.3. And by going through the Article 15.3, it is the POCSO Act that had been formed in India. There are also directive principles that you can relate to, because we have Article 39 Clause E, that is for the health and strength of the children, it shall not be abused. And we have Article 39F as well, that provides that children must be given opportunities to develop in a healthy manner, protected from exploitation. So this is where you will find that there is the statutory intersection of the POCSO Act as well as the Juvenile Justice Act of 2025 and Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita of 2023 as well. Now, this has the constitutional along with the constitutional social dimensions as well. When it comes to the legal ideal, so there is a decisional autonomy where it is the question that can the state dictate the emotional and the developmental boundaries of the near adult who had been aged between 16 to 18. Also, it also treats the teenagers as the objects of state control and not as the subject with evolving human rights. As well as there are the social dimensions, and that is the reality that is there. There is early cohabitation that remains a socio-cultural norms when it comes to the rural pockets. All right, there it is legally invalid, but socially this had been entrenched. There is weaponization factor as well, where POCSO had been weaponized by the disapproving families against the intercaste, interfaith or the self-arranged relationships as well. There had been certain of the committee that have provided their recommendation, especially the 22nd Law Commission report in 2023, which recommended that there should be judicial discretion in sentencing the consensual adolescent who had been aged between 16 to 18. It has opposed a flat reduction of the age of consent but advocated a guided exception that should be there while giving the punishment, or there should be a judicial discretion that should be there. There had been Justice Verma committee as well that was there in 2013 after the Nirbhaya case, and it had originally recommended keeping the consent age at 16, but it had warned that raising it without exception, it would criminalize the consensual peer relationship as well. There are empirical studies as well. There are thousands of POCSO case analysis that have proved that a massive proportion of the filings are the parent-directed prosecutions against the consensual elopement that had been there. Now, when it comes to the judicial warnings, there had been real cases on the ground as well. There was a case of Sabri versus State, and over here a young boy was prosecuted under the Prevention of Children from the Sexual Offences Act or POCSO Act, and the girl have consistently stated that the relationship was mutual and it was voluntary. Now, over here, High Court have quashed the criminal proceedings against the boy, observing that child-centric laws were never intended to classify the ordinary teenage romance as a predatory sexual offense. There had been Supreme Court warning as well in 2026, where it says that when a protective law is weaponized to settle the personal or caste grudges, it hollows out the true purpose of the law. So over here, the Apex Court had warned that this dilutes the public trust and diverts the resources from protecting children from the actual predatory abuse that is there. Now, there are certain global best practices as well when it comes to the other nations. In United States, most of the states, they implement the Romeo and Juliet Clause if the age gap is within 2 to 4 years and the offenses are downgraded from felony to misdemeanor, or they are exempted entirely as well. In Canada, the criminal code permits consensual sexual activity under the age of consent, provided the older partner is within the narrow defined age gap. And in United Kingdom and in Europe, the lowest statutory consent age is 16 in UK and 15 in France, which had been paired with the protective laws targeting the grooming, abuse of trust and exploitation. There is not consensual peer relationship, and that is the global best practices that can be seen. Now, you all are going to the future administrator, and these are the certain things that you should learn from this complete video. The first thing is that the laws, they must adapt to life. The rigid statutes, they are written in isolation from what actual ground realities are, and ultimately that causes the unintended systemic injustice as well. There is also proportionality that is the core to the justice. The sharp statutory distinctions should be there between the malicious exploitation and natural consensual development as well. There should be guided discretion over the rigid mandates that should be there. Alright, where it should empower the judiciary with the flexible sentencing bridges, written statutes and the ground realities as well. And the safeguard should be the core mission, where it should be that the filtering of the consensual cases, it frees the vital judiciary as well as police resources to prosecute the actual child predators which are there. And these are the things that you should grab from the complete video. So that would be all in this video. I hope that now you have a complete understanding of what the Romeo-Juliet Clause is. Now, if you are preparing for the Civil Services 2027 or for 2028, so the batch of the GS Foundation, that is resolution batch, it has just started. Now, you can enroll into the batch, and for enrolling into the batch, what you need to do is, if you want the maximum discount, you can use the code that is BRS Live. And please remember, the batches have just started, so you can enroll. And also, please do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel so that you do not miss any of the updates. And after subscribing, it is also important that you hit the notification bell icon as well. So that would be all. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care and Jai Hind. I will see you in the next. So till then, take care of yourself. Bye and Jai Hind.